There was a time when the name Larry Bird didn't evoke images of championship rings or the historic parquet floor of the Boston Garden. Instead, it was associated with the hum of a garbage truck engine in the early morning mist of southern Indiana. In the mid-1970s, in a quiet, dusty town called French Lick, Larry Bird was a young man who had seemingly given up on the world of elite sports. He wasn't practicing his jump shot under bright arena lights. He was lifting heavy brush and riding on the back of a sanitation truck. The idea that this college dropout and part-time laborer would one day become a global icon seemed not just improbable, but a physical impossibility. Years later, when Bird sat atop the basketball world as a multi-time MVP, he looked back on those humble days with a level of honesty that defined his character. "I thought I'd probably end up pouring concrete for a living," he once remarked. "Basketball wasn't some grand destiny for me back then. My only real goal in life was to be the best player on my high school team and maybe find a steady job to support myself." But fate, combined with a stubborn coach and an otherworldly competitive fire, had other plans. This is the definitive story of how a Hick from French Lick transformed from a small-town garbage man into a basketball genius, a man who became the greatest shooter of his era, a relentless rebounder, and perhaps the most feared trash talker in the history of the NBA. As Pat Riley famously said, "If I had to pick someone to take the last shot to win a game, I'd choose Michael Jordan, but if I had to pick someone to take a shot to save my life, I'd pick Larry Bird." To understand the greatness of Larry Bird, you must first understand the soil he grew up in. Born in 1956 in West Baden, Indiana, a farming town of barely 2,000 residents, Larry Joe Bird was the fourth of 6 children. His childhood was not defined by comfort, but by the constant, grinding pressure of poverty. His father, Joe Bird, was a hardworking man who took construction jobs whenever he could find them, but he was also a man haunted by personal demons and a severe struggle with alcoholism. His mother, Georgia, worked as a waitress at a local diner, doing everything she could to keep food on the table. Sometimes money became so tight that the Birds had to stay with Larry's grandmother just to survive. For young Larry, poverty wasn't a tragedy, it was simply his environment.
As growing up, you don't realize that you don't have anything because you never had it in the first place. Making some money and looking back, I remember all of it, and I don't want to be like that again.
Bird later reflected, but the psychological toll was there. It instilled in him a desperate, clawing need to escape. He saw his mother's tired eyes and his father's struggling life, and he made a silent vow. He would never live like that again. Sports became his escape, his only currency to prove his worth. Basketball in Indiana is more than a sport, it's a religion. For Bird, the game was a sanctuary. While his peers were out socializing, Larry was in his driveway. Even at 13, when he was a gangly, thin kid weighing barely 130 pounds, his work ethic was frightening. His father once promised him $20, a massive sum to him then if he could make the freshman team. That challenge ignited a spark that never went out. Bird became obsessed with the mechanics of the game. He would stand in the freezing Indiana winters, his hands freezing and his body aching, shooting for hours. During his sophomore year, a serious ankle injury forced him to miss much of the season, but he had watched his father go to work despite severe pain, and he adopted that same blue-collar approach.
He broke it or he just hurt it, but couldn't get his boot on. We had to help him get his boot on and go to work. So to me, it had been very easy to just say heck with it, but he knew he had to go.
While on crutches, Larry stood in his driveway and shot 200 shots every single day.
Well, my confidence came from me shooting basketball by myself for hours upon hours. I mean, it's not, I didn't pick up the ball on a Saturday and decide I was going to score 40 a game. I mean, that preparation came way before that.
By his senior year, a massive growth spurt pushed him to 6 feet 7 inches. The thin boy was replaced by a dominant force. In his final home game of high school, he produced an unbelievable stat line, 54 points and 38 rebounds. He finished the season averaging 31 points and 21 rebounds per game, leading his school to heights the town had never seen. Despite his high school success, the transition to the world outside French Lick was disastrous. Bird accepted a scholarship to Indiana University under the legendary Bobby Knight. But the enormous campus and financial pressures felt overwhelming for a boy from a tiny town.
Financially, I couldn't stay.
Okay.
Reg, I just couldn't do it.
After just 4 weeks, Bird dropped out and hitchhiked back home. He returned to French Lick, briefly attended community college, and eventually began working for the town's sanitation department. He became a garbage man. Strangely enough, Bird loved the job. It was outdoors, you were with your friends, and you were making the community look better, he said. For a while, it seemed this might be his future, but in 1975, tragedy struck. His father, Joe Bird, struggling with debts and alcoholism, took his own life.
He chose the way he wanted to die, and he did it, and it's just unfortunately that some people have problems like that, but I wish he was here, but he's not. So I have to go on with my life and try to make the most of my life, just like the rest of my family has, and that's the way we dealt with it.
Shortly after, Larry's brief marriage to a childhood acquaintance ended in a painful divorce. By age 19, Larry Bird was a college dropout, a grieving son, and a divorced laborer. The basketball world thought it had seen the last of him. The man who saved Larry Bird's career was Bill Hodges, an assistant coach at Indiana State. Hodges hunted Bird down and told him, "Someday, people are going to talk about you as the greatest player who never was." That sentence changed everything. Bird returned to the court, now standing 6 feet 9 inches tall. He transformed Indiana State into a national powerhouse, averaging 33 points and 13 rebounds. In 1979, he led them to an undefeated season and a spot in the NCAA championship game against Michigan State, led by Magic Johnson. Over 35 million people watched the game, a record that still stands today. Though Bird lost the game, the legendary rivalry that would save the NBA had officially begun. Red Auerbach of the Boston Celtics took a risk, drafting Bird in 1978 before he even finished college.
I just think that Red took a gamble because he had the 6th and the 8th pick that year. He wanted me. Why didn't he wait to the 8th pick? Why did he take me to the 6th pick?
When Bird finally arrived in 1979, the impact was immediate. The Celtics improved from 29 wins to 61 in his rookie year.
I think it took me probably 3 days after a rookie camp. I found out that this league is nothing. I can play in this league and I will dominate in this league.
Alongside Kevin McHale and Robert Parrish, Bird formed the Big Three, winning championships in 1981, 1984, and 1986. He was also a psychological assassin. In 1986, he famously announced he would play a game against Portland, mostly left-handed, finishing with 47 points, 14 rebounds, and 11 assists. He once scored 60 points against Atlanta, so dominant that even the opposing bench stood up to applaud him. His 3 consecutive MVP awards from 1984 to 1986 solidified his place among the immortals. The irony of Bird's career is that the injury that ended it didn't happen on a court. In 1985, despite being a millionaire, Bird spent a day shoveling gravel to personally pave his mother's driveway. He refused to pay someone else to do what he felt was his duty. That day, he severely damaged his back. For the rest of his career, he played through agonizing pain. He spent hours stretching and lying on the floor of the bench just to be able to move. Yet, he continued to dominate, averaging over 20 points and 9 rebounds, even in his final season. He was a member of the 1992 Dream Team, winning gold in Barcelona before finally walking away from the game. Larry Bird's journey from riding on the back of a garbage truck to the Hall of Fame is a testament to the power of resilience. He proved that greatness doesn't require a perfect start, it requires an unbreakable will. Today, Bird remains a symbol of basketball purity, a player who valued the pass as much as the shot, and who worked harder than anyone else because he remembered what it was like to have nothing. From the dirt roads of French Lick to the rafters of the Boston Garden, Larry Bird will forever be the legend who played every game as if his life depended on it.